Thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. It means a lot, and I'm very happy to be able to give you my thoughts and my insights on how to be effective vegans, effective advocates for other animals. So I'm hoping to be able to convey as much and as clearly as possible what I want to say. So before I start, I have actually 3 questions for you guys, and they're going to sound maybe stupid, and you're going to think, well, I know the answer to that. But I still want to ask those questions, and I want you to hold those answers until I'm done and really think about those questions. First question is, why are you vegan or not vegan? Why are you, I'm assuming everybody's vegan? All right, okay. So why are you vegan is the first question. Second question is, why is the world not vegan? And the third question is, what can we do about it to change that? So think about those questions, hold on to them until I'm done. And then I want to hear your input and your answers at the end of the talk. So my name is Véronique Perrault, and I obviously was born and raised in France, and I do have an accent. So if at any time during my talk there is something you don't really understand, I won't be offended if you ask me to repeat, because I know my English is not perfect. And I became a holistic coach only about a couple of years ago after going vegan back in 2006. And at the time, it was really obviously for the animals, and there was no other reason for it. And then eventually, I started looking into more and discovering that there's more to this veganism thing than just what we eat, what we wear, or what entertainment we get. And I got to veganism really through a way of doing activism in other parts. So in my 20s, I was involved with Amnesty International in France. And I looked into human rights. I was very concerned with that. And I remember writing thousands of letters to help prisoners of conscience. And in my early 30s, I turned to the environmental movement. And I started looking into everything that has to do with the state of our planet right now. And obviously, it's pretty bad. But I didn't connect all the dots until I got to veganism back in 2006. And it was not earth-shattering for me to go vegan. It was really logical. Suddenly, I started reading Fast Food Nation, and I got so grossed out by the meat industry, I just went vegetarian. And then eventually, as I was exposed to undercover footage from factory farms, and it really obviously bothered me. And I started eliminating eggs. And eventually, I got to dairy, and by the end of 2006, I was full-fledged vegan. But although this change was not earth-shattering, what happened to me after that really shifted. I became very angry, very preachy, very judgmental, and I was just going out there and trying to give my message to everybody, and I was just about to beat them up if they didn't get it. And I was very aggressive about it, and I couldn't understand why nobody was listening to me. At that point, the anger was so intense that whatever people felt, I was blocking it out. And I had to sort of stand back and start reflecting on this. And finally, I found The War Peace Diet, written by Dr. Will Tuttle. And that book completely changed my mind, totally transformed me overnight. And from that moment, I decided, okay, there is more to this veganism thing than all the shallow aspect of it, which is what we eat, what we wear, and what entertainment we get. It's actually a lot more. There's a deep conditioning, a deep cultural, social, historical background to the way our society functions. And the big message I got from this book is that I need to change myself. I need to change how I feel, I need to change how I think, and I need to change how I relate to other people and how I'm going to get my message to other people. So I looked into the War Peace Diet, and immediately after only 2 chapters, I decided I was going to be a War Peace Diet facilitator. So I took Will Tuttle's course to expand upon the ideas of his book and really look deeply at the cultural and social indoctrination that we all have. And it was very revelatory because I had no idea, really. I was very blind, like most of us were. And I realized, wow, you know what, this is huge. We have to deal with 10,000 years of history here. Not just what we're doing now, but really 10,000 years of conditioning and myths and what Will calls a herding mentality. And once I did that, I started looking into psychology. And about a year ago, I turned to energy psychology, and I started looking into how the psyche functions. And I want to tell you about this a little bit later, but right now I just wanted to, first of all, give you a little quiz and see how we stand on our knowledge. So here it is. Does anybody know where the word capital or capitalist comes from?
From cattle?
Very good. It's from Latin capita, which means head of cattle or ship. Does anybody know where the word pecuniary comes from? Pecuniary, as in financial problems, pecuniary problems. No. Good guess, though. It comes from the Latin pecus, which means cattle. Pecuniary. I don't even know what that means. It means, pecuniary means financial. So if you talk about financial problems, you'll say pecuniary problems. It's not a very commonly used term, obviously. And finally, does anybody know when the first use of the word war started in history? I see the looks of recognition there. And it comes actually from the ancient Sanskrit, which means gavya. And gavya literally means the desire for more cattle. So why does it matter? It matters because really when we look at our world today and how it functions, everything derives from this mentality of herding and owning animal as property, and that everything that we have built so far is a direct result of this first original idea of owning and exploiting animals for our own use. Now, this started about 10,000 years ago, 8 to 10,000 years ago. And for some reason, some man in the Middle East, what it is now Iraq, started herding sheep and goats. And then about 2,000 years later, they started herding cows. So let's not forget that those animals used to be free and wild. They were, there was never such thing as domestication, obviously. And then when this happened, something shifted, because we went from looking at animals as these sacred beings who were free and had a life of their own, who were co-inhabitants of this earth with us, to seeing them as things, properties, and diminishing their abilities and diminishing the way we saw them and treating them as just breeding machines and things to be used, to be exploited. And at the same time this happened, Will has this term that he used in his book called the domination of the feminine. So around the time that men started herding those animals, they also started exploiting women and reducing them from first-class citizens to second-class citizens, turning them into just breeders. And once this happened, obviously, it is easy to look at other people and other cultures and using this mindset to find excuses to exploit other people and other animals. Once you have this mindset in place, this is it, the game is over. And this is the society we have nowadays. And people think, oh, well, I work in an office. What does it have to do with me? Well, it has everything to do with you. Because you're wearing probably animal-based products. You're eating meat. Your shoes are probably leather. And even though you don't see the cattle because they are safely, not safely, but well hidden in factory farms or on some smaller farms, and we don't see them, it is still exactly the same herding mentality on which our society is based. So this is where the work is very hard for us as activists, because really when we go out there and we try to open people's eyes, we don't necessarily think about all this context, but people are even blinder than we are about this context. They just follow the programming. And this programming is what we've been taught since we were born. We have those culturally mandated meals. And those culturally mandated meals said, as soon as you're born, you go to the store and you're going to buy those little cute little baby, foods. And what do they have in them? Chicken, meat, you name it, fish, whatever. Those cultural meals are injected into us from the moment we are born. So therefore, this programming starts into us from the moment we are born. And as children, we usually, we care about animals. We do care, we look at them, we want to pet them. And then at the same time, we have our parents telling us, well, yeah, but those animals are cute, you can pet them, but those animals their food. So we start doing this disconnection, this numbing down, and we get to where we're adults and we just can't think anymore because really we just follow the programming. And people think they have a choice when actually they don't make a choice. They're just making the choice that they've been programmed with. There's nothing about individuality in this context. It's all about following the herding mentality, following the programming that we all received. On the other hand, when we go vegan, is when we start questioning all this. And it takes a very huge shift in our consciousness to do that. One of the reasons also it is so hard to convince people to go vegan is to look at the psyche. The way our brains are wired is to accept what is familiar and reject what is unfamiliar, because what is unfamiliar is dangerous. When you talk to a non-vegan, you tell them, you know, this is what's going on. Usually they're, I don't want to know. I don't want to know because it's dangerous. It's fear. It's fear that you have to change. It's fear that you have to think about things you never wanted to think about, and you have to open your eyes. It's total fear. And so people go into denial. They go into mocking us, and we all seen it. And usually, what is the first question they ask us? Thank you. Thank you. And actually, you know, when I was in my angry phase as a vegan, I had actually something I want to show you. You get your proteins. That was a question that was really driving me crazy, and I just wanted to, you know, really get violent. And I'm a vegan, right? So I decided I was going to do this. I figured, you know what? If they ask me a question, here's the answer. Now move on. It says, where do you get, no, I don't eat meat. Yes, I get enough protein. No, my shoes aren't leather. And yes, I have a life. And that usually gives a good laugh to people who meet me on the street. I don't really wear it much anymore, but it's a good conversation starter. And it gets to the point that, you know what, move on from the protein thing, because we have heard enough of the protein thing. And then you want to, you know, you always go along and then you just say, well, you know, where do you get your calcium, right? Well, the first thing I tell them is, what is calcium? Calcium is a mineral. Where does the mineral comes from? They come from the ground. Okay, so do they come from the cow? No, they come from the ground. The cow gets it from the foliage, from the grass that the cow eats, but it has nothing to do with the cow. And there's a lot of nutritional myth, and one reason I became a coach is because, first of all, I needed to answer those questions to myself, which was, are we actually omnivores? It was a big question for me at the time. And then I took my Tickley Campbell course at Cornell, and I found out, no, we are really biologically herbivores. We just act as omnivores, but we really are technically, physically, like our cousins, the chimps, we are herbivores. And by the time I was done with that course, I had no doubt whatsoever that we are herbivores. So we have to deal with 10,000 years of myth and lies and propaganda. And at the same time, we have to deal with, and I don't want to name names here, but some animal advocacy group saying, you know, it's okay to go vegetarian first. Well, is slavery okay? You know, it's whenever you say to somebody you want to go vegetarian, you're lying to them. You're basically reaffirming the herding mentality that some form of exploitation is okay. That that it's okay for them to make steps, obviously, but to tell them that, you know, vegetarian is good enough, it's reinforcing the lie. That's how I see it. And for that matter, really, it comes down to us owning our truth and really understand that deep down we have this truth we have to hold on, and that truth is the one we need to spread out there, not semi-truth or semi-lies, but the truth. The truth is, and I'm going to read you a quote from Dr. Tuttle, which I think really answers that question. It says, more than anything else, veganism is truth, the truth of awareness of what we're actually eating, or what it takes to get it on our plates, of all the implications of our routine actions, the truth for our interconnectedness with all beings, the truth of our radiant essential nature, three, awake, loving, merciful, and wise, the truth of the ramifications of our meals, of our devastation of oceans for fish, to feed chickens and cows whose bodies babies and yearnings we steal. The truth of our repressed and deadened horror, the truth of our inability to make some pretty obvious connections. Eating violence and terror, we long to avoid the truth. And I think that says it all right there, because it really is, when you look at other people, what do you see? I see zombies, personally. They're not awake. Those are people who are asleep, they're sleepwalking all day long, every day of their life. They don't question anything. They have no problem with accepting the dominant mentality. And we come and we tell her, hey, there's a problem in how the way you live. You need to rethink the way you live. And it's very threatening. It's very scary. Do you remember how you felt before you went vegan? Did you have doubts? Were you scared? Were there moments where you're like, these people are crazy? What the hell is that veganism thing? Do you have those moments? I know I never did, but I got those moments after I went vegan. And the reason was, at the time, I knew nobody. I was the only vegan I knew. And I was the only vegan I knew for the first few years. So I had absolutely zero idea what veganism meant or what it was supposed to be like. So I had to do my own research. And then finally I met some people, fortunately. And when we look at our culture, when we look at the way people think for the most part, they really are sleeping. They're just sleeping. They are living into this dreamlike existence that they think is reality, when actually it's not even their true nature. What is our true nature? Our true nature is that we're born vegans, first of all. The only animal food we should ever have is our mother's milk. Okay? We are not designed physiologically to absorb any kind of animal foods. Even Walter Willett at Harvard said so, and he's sort of a mainstream doctor. He's not exactly radical like McDougall. But he said himself, the only amount necessary of meat in our diet is 0. And that goes for any other animal foods, obviously. I don't like calling them foods, but you know what I mean. And this is very hard for us, because when we go out there, we're faced with all those people who are completely have blinders on. And I think there's a lot to say about how we approach them, about communication, about language. The power of language is so underestimated in this community, so underestimated. And we also have to recognize, I was talking about a psyche, but we have to recognize how our brains function. And one thing I learned by going into energy psychology and epigenetics is that 95% of our awake time is actually subconscious. Our subconscious is like a replay machine. It just replays everything you had in your life constantly, replays the same old messages that you've been taught since you were born. 5% of our awake time is actually conscious. And that conscious is when you say you decide, you're on the road, and you decide you want to take that direction. That's a conscious decision. But nobody has to repeat you how to learn how to drive. That's completely subconscious. You already know. Nobody has to repeat it to you, because you already have that programming. Now we're dealing with a 10,000-year-old herding mentality that is deeply programmed into everybody's psyche. Now, what do you think is the thing that people think when we tell them you should go vegan? Do they think, oh yeah, that's a great idea, I'm going to go for it. Tell me how. Or do they say, what are you talking about? Are you telling me I shouldn't even, eat my mother's cooking anymore? What the hell? Are you telling me that my religion was wrong all this time? You're telling me that my culture was wrong all this time? Get the hell out of the way. That's the reaction most people have. They are blocking it, they are denying it, and they will sometimes ridicule us. That's just a subconscious. Most people consciously want to do the right thing. Most people consciously think of themselves as good people. But their subconscious, which is hugely powerful, tells them, well, no, you need to keep doing what you've been doing for the last 30, 40 years, because that's where you're safe. That's where you're safe. And we're trying to get them out of that safe zone that they've known all their lives and telling them, no, you need to do this differently, right? Now, here's the other kicker on this, which makes it even harder. One of the things that I discovered when researching energy psychology is that by the time we are 7 years old, 80% of everything we know has been downloaded into us. If you think of the brain as a processor, has been downloaded into us by others. The knowledge we have by the time we're 7 years old, 80% of it is not even ours. It's somebody else's teachings. The 20% that remains, roughly, is really who you are. It's your truth. It's where you really are yourself. But most people go by that 80% programming, and they never question whatever they've been taught, whatever they've been learning in school, you name it, or whatever the parents tell them, and this is huge. When you think about it, by the time we're 7 years old, we're already like little robots who follow the orders. We are. And we don't question it. Some of us might, but for the most part, most people never do, until we come into the picture and we start making them think. And obviously, not everybody's going to go vegan overnight. And that's just because they are deeply programmed and conditioned and in denial. But a few will. And one thing I found is that by applying personally to myself energy psychology, I started noticing that I was attracting people, new type of people. I was attracting people who were open to the message. Not the people who were closed-minded, but the people who were open to the message. How did I do that? Simple. I decided that I was not going to be angry anymore, and I was going to develop peace, and I was going to develop the compassion that I had inside, that was there, that we all have from the moment we were born, and I was going to apply it every single day of my life to the best of my ability. And I'm not perfect, far from it, but that is my goal. My goal is to empower others to do the same in our community and outside of our community, because I want people to reach their full potential. Not what they think they are, but they're way more. People have no idea of their potential. They totally miss the point. And it really bothers me when I see people falling off the wagon and say, well, I used to be vegan. And I like to tell them, well, why did you do that? Well, it was too hard. I felt I needed protein. I started getting sick. We all heard those excuses, right? And one response to this is really, once again, to look at epigenetics. What does epigenetics mean? Does anybody know? Nope? Okay. Epigenetics, what is it? Mm-hmm. Epigenetics. Sorry, my accent. All right, the definition I found for epigenetics is control over the genes. And control over the genes means that we are not determined by our genes or our DNA. We can actually change our genes and have control over our bodies. And what I found through the work of Bruce Lipton is that it's not just our environmental input that defines us, but it's also our thoughts and our beliefs. And when we understand that, we realize that anybody can go vegan, really. It's just a matter of, it's not just a matter of biology, it's also a matter of belief. I'm going to give you an example I had on Facebook recently of how beliefs really will stop you from doing the right thing. There was this woman on Facebook who posted in a thread, I forget who started it, but it doesn't matter, posted in a thread that she really wants to go vegan, but she still has to have meat because if she doesn't have meat, she's going to lose weight and she's going to be dying pretty much. That's what the message sounded like. And I told her, well, what's going on in your life? What is wrong with you? And, well, every time I stop eating meat, I lose weight. And I said, okay, so how much meat do you eat each week? Oh, just twice a week. Okay, so you pretty much can go vegan. I mean, it's, what, small amounts of meat every week? You might as well just go vegan. You're there already. You're pretty much there. Oh, no, I can't do that. I can't do that because if I do that, I will lose weight and I'm probably going to die. Okay, so I tried to make her understand that it has nothing to do with her biology. It has everything to do with her beliefs. She has this belief that if she doesn't do that, this will happen. And she doesn't understand that deep down we are really herbivores, that we have a biology of herbivores, and the fact that she's not going to eat meat, I think, has nothing to do with her losing weight. It has everything to do with her belief that something bad is going to happen if she doesn't do that. And that's what we face every single day. People cling on to those myths and those beliefs when actually they could just switch those beliefs around and just be vegan today. But this is at the core of our herding culture, which keeps those myths alive constantly, and it's reinforced by corporations, with marketing, with, you know, you open the television set, that's it, you've got commercials for all this stuff. You know, eat your burgers, and when you get sick, go see the doctor and get your drugs. And then we'll keep you on those drugs for the rest of your life because, you know, we have to make money, right? So that's really the idea behind this marketing, is that we have to keep people enslaved to this. And people have no idea that when they participate in exploiting other animals, they also participate in their own exploitation. And this is why we have the 1%, the 99%, and this 1% is very happy to keep spreading messages of lies and propaganda, and some groups are happy to support them. Propaganda 101. If you repeat a lie often enough, it becomes a truth. That's not from me, that's from Hermann Goering. And it's true. If you look at our history, it's the same lies over and over and over again, passed down through generations, constantly. Parents to children, parents to children, parents to children. Our parents didn't know any better than we did. We just happened to be more awake. We're not better than them, we just happened to be more awake. But they got their beliefs from their parents, who got them from their parents, and on and on. Our job is to break that cycle. Because as long as we don't break that cycle, it's just going to keep repeating itself. It's a perpetuating lie. It's a perpetuating myth. So once we understand all this, what are the things we can do to change that? And one of the, I think, most important things we can do is to look at our language. Because our language is speciesist. Even as vegan, it is still speciesist. For instance, as you know, I was born and raised in France, and our language, the big major difference, in my opinion, between my language and yours is that in my language there's only 2 genders. Male, female. Everything's either male, female. The table is female, the dog is masculine, is male. Don't ask me why, I didn't make those rules. But the thing is, whether it's an object or a being, everything has a gender. Now when I started learning English, what really struck me was that there's this eat gender. What the hell is that eat gender? And I realized that applies to things. And it really bothers me when I hear vegans referring to other animals as eat. Eat barks. Just like they refer to babies. Oh, it's so cute. No, we got to change that, because whenever we do this, we reinforce the idea of other animals as things. I'd rather call a dog a he, even if he's a female, and I don't know he's a female, than calling him a it. Because whenever I do that, I'm thinking, he's not a thing. He's a being. Well, if I give him a gender, even if it's the wrong one, I just decided he's a being. He's not a thing. So I just want you to be aware of that, really, and think about how you use your language every day. Another thing that really annoys me when I hear vegans talk sometimes is when they talk about the food they eat. Oh, I have this analog meat and this alternate milk, and then I ate this fake chicken and this fake this, analog that, mock this, mock that. We got to stop that as well. Our food is the standard, not the meat industry standard. They are the anomaly. What they have is the anomaly. It should not even exist. So we have to stop referring to our food as an alternative. It is not. This is real food. We eat real food. I eat plant-based milk. I drink plant-based milk. I eat vegan chicken. Or if I want to call it this way, I don't like it, but vegan tofu, whatever. You know, I don't eat fake this. I don't eat mock that. I don't eat an analog. I eat real food. And I notice that a lot with vegans, that they don't think about it. It's like sort of a second nature to refer to those foods as such. And I think it needs to change, because every time we use those terms, once again we reinforce the idea that the industry has the monopoly on those foods. Did you know, for instance, that the milk industry tried to copyright the word milk? Okay, this is true. They try to copyright the word milk. Now try to tell that to a breastfeeding woman, that she cannot call her milk anymore. She has to call it breast beverage. Right? Okay. But it's true. They actually try to copyright the word milk because they know very well that the growth of so-called alternative milks like soy and hemp and etc. is growing, and they're losing market. So they're trying to sort of cash in on that idea and hang on to that product so that they have the monopoly. But we're a good threat, I think. So this is another thing. The other thing I'd like to talk about is I see a lot of that in our movement, which is there's a lot of anger. And anger is good. I mean, we have to be angry because obviously we see all this horror, and it's normal to be angry. Being angry is normal. The way we use anger, on the other hand, is a very different thing. And if we go out there and we start yelling at people on the street, you know, how come you're not vegan? What the heck is wrong with you? I don't think this is a good way of turning people to our cause. On the other hand, this is the way I used to be, by the way. This is the way I used to react to people. I was like, what the hell is wrong with you guys? And then I realized, you know, this is a wrong approach. And I changed my approach completely. And I started noticing that I really do bring to me the right people. And it happened to me many times this last couple of weeks when I had people who just literally came to me and we start talking, and they are receptive to the message. They just get it. The point is not to try to convince people who will never listen to you. It's to try to convince people who are actually ready to listen to you. And the reason I say that is because you guys have heard of the 10% tip point theory? You heard about it? So according to, I forget the name of the scientist, maybe you can remind me. There's a scientist who put this theory out there that anytime a new idea reaches about 10% of the population, you have a tipping point. And when that tipping point is reached, suddenly it becomes mainstream. So according to the Vegetarian Resource Group, we're about under 5% vegans right now in this country. So imagine what we can do when we get to 10%. We already see it in the media. This is gaining ground, and we see those celebrities. I don't want to call them vegans, but they are, you know, sort of turning into the right direction. The pre-vegans, exactly. And they're turning into the right direction, and they're trying, you know, they're starting to have some form of awareness, and I think we need to encourage that. I don't like calling them vegans because to me veganism is an ethical thing. It has nothing to do with, you know, health, although it's good bonus, obviously. But we need to encourage that because I think it shows to other people that they can be, I'll be happy to answer what... oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I couldn't remember, so thank you. And we need to remind, you know, we need to have this awareness that, you know, this is a move in the right direction. We need to encourage that. But always reminding them that, you know what, there's more to it than just diet. It's not a diet. And hopefully we can, you know, use that to our advantage and gain even more ground. But obviously it's slow. So one thing I like to encourage everyone to do is to really develop inner peace and be really centered. And my way of doing it is to use meditation and energy psychology, and I found it to be extremely helpful for me. If you're not into religious stuff, don't worry about it, because meditation is proven to actually create new neuron pathways in your brain. So in effect, you become more smarter when you meditate. And the other thing is, do me a favor today, turn off the damn television. Seriously? Because there's nothing good coming from that box. All you get is propaganda and messages constantly reinforcing that mindset and putting it back in your subconscious. Do you really want to have this mindset in your subconscious? If you really want to be effective, I would say just get it out of your brain completely. Get it out of your life. This is the old way. You want to be going to the new way. And the new way is really looking at your life and thinking, okay, how can I be even more effective today? How can I be more centered, more at peace, and that really attract people to you? And you will. If you do that, you will. I've seen it happen to me many times. I don't even have to go crazy and say, I'm going to find people to give my message to today. I have people like literally coming to me and say, hey, you know what, I like your shirt. It's very interesting. And actually you have a vegan t-shirt. And I met my neighbor a few days ago. I told you that story, right? Okay. I met my neighbor a few days ago, and I've been in this building for years. I never met her before. And I had my anti-GMO shirt. And she looked at the shirt and said, oh, cool shirt. And I started talking to her. And she was like, oh my God, I so want to go vegan. But, you know, I'm stuck with that stupid paleo guy, and I don't know what to do about it. So she was so conflicted. And I spent an hour with her, and I started to make her feel, I hope, better. But the thing is, I didn't seek her. She came to me. Just like that guy, when I went to T-Mobile, switch my phone line, the guy just switched on, literally, when he saw my vegan shirt. So the point is, you don't have to be a billboard, but you know, having a good T-shirt with a good message is a good way of starting conversation. You'll be surprised that if you bring in, you come to people and you bring the best intention and you bring the most compassionate person you can be, they're going to open up. There might be a few, obviously, who are going to say, I don't want to know. But for the most part, that has been my experience. When I do that, when I really get there and I'm centered and I'm on my truth, people actually listen. They may not go vegan, but the thing is, they get open to the idea and the suggestion and looking at more information. I had 2 people last week who told me, okay, I'm going vegan. I'm like, what happened? Well, you talked to me. Okay, great. That's all I want to know. That makes my day. You know, cultivate that peace in yourself, cultivate that love, that compassion, because when you do, you're really going to see amazing results. And it's not only good for you, but it's good, obviously, for the animals. Now, the other thing I'd like to mention, you may have noticed that I always use the word other in front of the word animals. I try to all the time. And the reason I do that is because when I talk to people, I want to always reinforce the idea that we are animals too. Because most people have this crazy idea that we are different. I don't know where that comes from. For some reason, we're from a different planet than those animals, and that, you know, we're humans. So, you know, with those weird people, when actually we're just, well, what are we? We're just mammals. You know, we're apes. What are apes supposed to eat, right? Plants. So, whenever you put the word other in front of animals, people are like, what do you mean other? They have this questioning look, and they start looking at you and say, what do you mean by other? Well, aren't you an animal too? Oh, yeah, you know, I never thought about it this way. Seriously, it happened to me many times. Whenever I do that, I get those really questioning looks. What do you mean we're other animals? You know? And it must sound crazy, but it's a revelation for a lot of people. They don't think about it. They think of themselves as this different category of beings that, you know, is separate from the rest. Well, we're not. We're just all part of the same whole. So one of the things also that's very efficient, or I found very efficient for myself, is to always reframe. So if I can think of an example here. You're on the street, you're doing leafleting, and somebody comes to you and say, I could never go vegan because it's so. They give you all the usual excuse. Where do you get your protein? Where do you get your calcium? I know I can't go vegan because I'm going to miss my cheese. You know, you heard those questions. It comes up all the time. The way to reframe that is to go to those people and say, well, why do you think you need cheese? Don't answer the questions. Ask them questions. Try to find out what's the problem, what makes them tick. And when you do that, you start seeing people who are concerned by their health. Other people are, just don't know about what's going on with other animals. And if you ask them questions and you show that you're interested in concern about them, you're going to find out they're going to be way more receptive to your message if you show them the attention that they want, because really that's attention gathering. And you also, in the process, sort of relieve their fear of listening to the message. You relieve this anxiety that they have at, oh my God, I could never go vegan because it means I have to change. When you actually, tell them, well, do you think it's radical? Is it radical to eat fruits and vegetables? Okay, maybe it is radical to eat fruits and vegetables, but what is your other concern? Oh, the cheese. Okay, the cheese. Well, what is cheese? Cheese comes from bovine secretions. Ugh, bovine secretions, huh? Suddenly they realize, whoa, they picture that themselves under the car and starting to suck our teeth or something. They have this, seriously, when you use those terms and you look at people's eyes, ooh, When you use the word meat instead of using flesh, what do? You reinforce, again, this mentality that meat is flesh. What does the word meat mean? Does anybody know what the actual meaning of the word meat is? Close. Dave? Close to. Now, it actually literally means that which is not liquid. So in essence, it refers to any food that's solid. It doesn't refer to animal flesh per se. But for some reason, when you say meat, people think flesh, right? So we want to reclaim that word for what it truly means. I mean, we eat coconut meat, right? We have no problem saying coconut meat, but for some reason, if you just say the word meat, people think animal flesh. So when you're out there and you talk to people, don't call it meat, call it what it is. Don't hide behind euphemism. Tell things for what they are, because people have no idea. If you got somebody and you say, do you like your meat, do you like your cheese? Now, do you like eating animal flesh? Do you like eating, drinking bovine secretions? It's what it is, right? Do you like your chicken menstruation products? Okay, that's gross. But you know what I'm saying, is that instead of using euphemism, say things for what they truly are. We use all those words to hide what things are. Let's get rid of it. That's part of the conditioning. The meat industry, or I should call it the animal flesh industry, uses those words to mask what they are truly selling. What are they selling? They're selling dismembered animal body parts. They're selling the secretions of a cow. They're selling something that comes out of a chicken's butt, for God's sake. Right? We don't think about it. Look, the fact that you laughed, shows that you don't think about it. No, it's quite all right, actually. I found it funny too, in a way. But it shows that we are programmed to think of eggs as this neat little thing in a package, right? But we don't think about what it really is. It's something that comes out of a hen's butt. Sorry. That's what it is. When you tell people those things, they're like, oh my God, what really? It's a shock. You want to sort of shock the truth into them. Nicely, not obviously, nicely, not like, I'm going to tell you what it is. No, you want to do it nicely and obviously, but don't hide behind words. Don't hide behind euphemisms. Say things for what they truly are. Because when you do that, then people really start thinking. Because they don't think about it. It's just, like Melanie Joy would say, it's natural, normal, and necessary. If they accept it as normal, natural, and necessary, they're not going to question it unless we tell them what it is. So do that, and you'll see how good results with it, I promise. There is a quote I really like from Mahatma Gandhi. I kind of want to read you if I can. In his words, your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values become your destiny. And I'm sure you all understand what that means. But the power of belief, the power of those myths that we've been brought up on is deep. Remember that 95% subconscious programming that I was telling you about? That 80% thing about, that we've been taught by the time we're 7? How many people do you know by the age of 7 who think, I don't want to eat animals? How many do you know? There are a few? You're one of them? Great. Right. That's your 20% there talking to you, not that 80% you've been taught. That you were somehow able to reach to your true self and figuring it out. But the majority of people will never do it unless we confront them with it. Because it's so deeply entrenched, deeply, beaten down in our heads. It took me 36 years. I wish it took me less, but unfortunately it took me 36 years. And then once I was there, I was thinking, why did it take me so long? And I had to really read the word Peace to understand why it took me so long and how deep the programming was. So today, I would